All the stories that are read have the original links in the description. This is my first video, so please be patient with me. I am only in the experimentation phase after all. I hope you enjoy! I'm going to start this one out by saying that the Wikipedia page for the person mentioned in this story is included in the description bar, along with the story. I want to start off by saying I'm not the world's greatest writer, so I apologize in advance if my writing is not up to par with other stories on this sub. Anyways, enjoy! My grandmother used to work as a nurse in my hometown. She enjoyed the job and got along pretty well with her coworkers. Almost every morning she would get herself some fresh coffee from the break room, since there was a man there who always ended up making it for everyone. One day she was getting herself some coffee, as usual. Upon taking a sip of the beverage, she immediately spit it out and dumped it in the sink. When telling the story, she told me that it had tasted like there was sugar in it, and she absolutely hates coffee with sugar in it. A while later, an arrest was made on a man named Michael Swango, the guy preparing the coffee in the break room. He was convicted of aggravated battery for poisoning coworkers and patients with arsenic and other poisons. So, turns out there was never any sugar in it. Instead, there was poison. Ever since then, she had brought her own coffee instead. So, thanks to my grandma's disliking for sugary coffee, she's still alive today. I had just moved to a university town in the southern US to attend graduate school. I originally hail from a very small town. In fact, our entire school, 7 through 12, had less than 750 kids. My undergraduate school was also small, so the switch to a big university town already made me a bit uneasy. Of course, I moved to said town in the middle of the hunt for a local serial rapist. I heard about this on the news a lot, and while I was a bit freaked out, I figured as long as I was safe and smart, I'd be okay. I had 3 other roommates, and we lived in a very nice, safe part of town. It was summer, and I was staying in town to wait tables until the fall semester. I was totally in the restaurant vampire lifestyle, staying up until dawn and sleeping until noon. During the summer, only one of my roommates was ever around. I was mostly on my own. This day I decided to go out on my back deck to catch some rays before work. However, it was hot, really, really hot, so I couldn't stay outside for long without taking air conditioning/water breaks. I was quite obsessed with being tan at the time and was willing to suffer for what I thought would make me more attractive. As I'm sweating my butt off flipping through a magazine, a man catches my eye in the street below. Our deck looked out over the street and the street that ran perpendicular to ours. He was walking very slowly by our house. The slowness of his walk unnerved me a bit, and he was wearing a black hoodie completely zipped up in 97-degree weather. I recognized this as sketchy and decided to go back inside for the rest of the afternoon. About 15 minutes later the doorbell rings. My instinct was just to open the door. In my hometown, people often left their doors unlocked. My good friend would even leave the keys in his convertible with the top down when he parked. Of course, we should have been more cautious, but after living in a town that was literally ranked as the most safest town in the mid-80s, we became too comfortable. Something inside me made me pause and think. I should look out the window to see who this is first, which is something a bit foreign to me. I had just come from living in a dorm of 4 years. Our door did not have a peephole, but we had a large bay window to the left of the front door. I tried to subtly open the blinds to see who it was without revealing that I was home. I was sure it was a door-to-door salesman, as I wasn't expecting anyone. Most of my friends were at work or gone for the summer. So what I saw was the same man that had walked by before in his fully zipped black hoodie. I freaked out, quickly trying to figure out a rational reason for this person to be knocking on my door. The roommate that was home most of the summer had some odd friends, and I didn't know her that well. I figured if it was one of her friends, she wasn't here anyway. After verifying that the door was locked, I retreated to the safety of my bedroom. I calmed down and figured out that it was just someone trying to scam gas money out of me, something I learned about quickly after moving to the city. I got a big glass of water and decided to return outside for a while longer. As soon as I stepped back onto the deck, I saw him. He was standing on the road looking up at me on the deck, just standing there, the same guy. Then he walked very slowly down the street, still staring at me. He was actually craning his neck backwards to keep looking at me. So this really did it. I went inside and didn't come out again until I had to leave for work. About 1 to 2 weeks later, a woman was attacked one road away from me, and very close to the route the sketchy hoodie man was taking. Then a couple of months after that, this serial rapist was caught, and he was responsible for the attack near my house. Did I almost meet this serial rapist? I guess I'll never know. Never open the door without looking out the window, especially those trusting souls from small towns. This happened about 5 years ago when I was 16 and was attending my last summer at my sleepaway camp in West Virginia. Granted, I was only there for a month, but it was the longest month of my life. My cabin was full of girls I knew from previous summers and a girl no one knew, Mary. She was kind of the oddball out, and it was obvious after a few days that she isolated herself and had a hard time fitting in. So I tried my best to include her in our normal activities while the rest of my friends didn't pay her much attention. After about a week she started clinging on to me, which I figured was because she disliked me as a new friend, and I was the only one that showed her any attention. Wherever I went she was kind of just right there, always a step behind me in my periphery. We were required to take buddies to the bathroom, and whenever I casually mentioned I was going, she would jump up and volunteer to take me. Nothing weird. I started noticing strange habits of hers. Whenever we walked to an activity, she would walk next to me, and if she noticed our walking was out of sync, like my right leg went forward when her left leg did, she would skip to adjust it so we were walking the same way. Now this sounds a little questionable. I thought maybe I was overthinking it, until several of my friends mentioned they were noticing this stuff happening as well, without me saying anything. During meals we were assigned tables, but even though she sat across the entire dining hall away from me, she never stopped watching. I would go up to the buffet and fill my plate, noticing that as I sat down, she would go up and choose the exact same foods as me while still watching me. This happened with every activity, from art to sports, etc. At this point I wasn't creeped out yet. I was just a little weirded out by her tendencies. On a Tuesday, this is relevant, I was just starting to ride the horse I was newly assigned during a ring lesson. This horse was a little wild from the winter off and bucked me off, causing me to be forced to stay in the infirmary during the lesson times for the rest of the week. The following week I watched as Mary went out of her way to request the same horse that I had fallen off. I was kind of perplexed by this, of course. The Tuesday of that week, I watched as she threw herself off that horse, and was also forced to stay in the infirmary alone with me. My 1 hour a day that I could escape her was now also taken away. I started to get really annoyed by her because no matter what I was doing, she was always there. We had to switch bunks midway through the session, and I was genuinely angry when she requested not only the same cabin as me, but also the bed next to mine. We both chose top bunks that were aligned on the same wall, so my feet were at her head. I started to notice even weirder things. I was writing a letter home one day and felt like I was being watched. I looked to my right and saw Mary was sitting facing forward, but her head is cocked to the side, staring at me with a demonic smile. My stomach dropped. A couple nights after that encounter, I woke up with the same feeling of being watched. It was pitch black, but I grabbed a flashlight to go walk to the bathroom since I was already up. But nope, I turned over with my light to see Mary standing next to my bed with her head at my level watching me sleep. Just standing in the middle of the cabin, staring. I was speechless. I just figured maybe she needed someone to take her to the bathroom. I started to leave for the bathroom and she follows. I was thoroughly creeped. Stuff like that kept happening for the rest of the session, but when her parents finally came to get her, I refused to even look up to say bye. I have never been so happy to leave a place in my life. I can't express the level of creepiness over the computer, but I can say I literally felt like I was in danger when I was near her. I never want to figure out why she was seemingly so obsessed with me. I should start this post out by saying that I'm a nursing student and I was completing a rotation on a psych ward at the time. One thing to know about psych patients: certain behaviors are normal for them and certain behaviors are not. For example, depressed patients can have thoughts of suicide every day and that will be considered their normal, obviously still concerning and treated as such. But if they suddenly started having thoughts of homicide, that would be very concerning because it's a dramatic change in their behavior. Back to the story. Psych wards require frequent check-ins on patients because who knows what they're up to in their rooms alone. They can be quite crafty, and you must stay on top of them. So toward the end of the shift, I was doing my final check on a patient. It was about 11 p.m. I felt the hair stand up on the back of my neck, so I whipped around and noticed the super creepy figure in the door separating my patient's room and the room next door, sort of like a hotel room door. She was not there when I entered the room. It was also pitch black at this time, so I shone my flashlight on the figure. It was a patient from a room down the hall who was just wandering around. Figuring she was hallucinating or confused, I offered to walk her back to her room and help her get comfortable. As I was walking down the hall with the patient, we paused in front of the nursing station, which was dimly lit. As I was going to ask the nurse if she could have some sort of sleep aid, the patient then turned to me and said, "You have the most beautiful skin. I would love to skin you alive and wear it." Maintaining my professional nature, but scared shitless in my head, I said something along the lines of, "Now, we're not going to do that. We're going to get you to bed." As soon as I got her in bed and her sleep aid was given, I turned to shut her lights out, and just before the room went black, she gave me the most creepy and sinister smile I had ever seen, and had a look of pure evil in her eyes. I quickly shut the door and booked it back to the nursing station after that, and reported what she said to me to one of the most intimidating male nurses I've ever seen, who promptly called her doctor for her to be evaluated, because this sort of behavior was very unusual for her and not in her nature, which makes this 100 times more creepy. So, psych patient who suddenly took an interest in my skin, let's never meet again.